Hi everyone, my name is Kristen Elaine. This is my Teach 1 presentation on ontological adjustments for HAP 464. In this presentation, we will go over what an ontological adjustment is, how to modify ICD-9 codes in SQL, and how to recalculate the likelihood ratio with broader disease groups. In class, we went over the internal classification of diseases, where it showed us what ontology was. Ontology is the classification of diseases based on hierarchy. An adjustment is referring to adding or removing characters from ontology to properly describe a disease. When we look at the disease category in the picture to the left, we see salmonella. Salmonella has the code 003.2, but dropping the next digit moves it up to a broader concept. The broader concept that it belongs to is zoonotic and bacterial diseases, which is just 003. But if you were to add another digit to the end of the salmonella code, you would create more specificity. So you would either have salmonella meningitis or salmonella with arthritis, depending on the digit that you add. If you add a 0, 1, 2, 3, it just changes what the classification is. For question 3, they asked us to adjust the likelihood ratio of the list of diagnoses based on the broader concept that they belong to. And we also have to adjust the likelihood ratios associated with all the diagnoses with less than 100 observations. The first thing that I did was to create a table or to select a table that would show me what my data consisted of. So I downloaded the data, which was labeled LR in our assignment, and I selected the top 1,000 rows from the table from the data. Now I already put the data into my HAP 464 database within SQL, so this was done before starting the assignment. Then I selected the data and I noticed how all the ICD-9 codes have several decimal places, and I noticed the likelihood ratio of the different ICD-9 codes. The next thing that I did was to select the row ICD-9 from the table that we see here, because this is the most important table that we're going to use because we need to perform the ontological adjustment on that row. We're going to use the IIF stuff, the if stuff function, to modify the code and create a temporary table with the shortened ICD-9 codes. So this is how you use an if statement if you've never used one before. It's if blank is null. So if blank, whatever it is, whatever variable it is null, then this should happen. So if this, then this, and the as section of the code is going to just rename it to a different label. So what I did to create new ICD-9 codes with one less variable is use the if stuff function. And the stuff part of the if function is going to insert a string into another string. So in this example, we're going to use IIF stuff, use the category ICD-9, and we're telling the code that if it has seven places, if it has seven variables, then we want to remove one digit. And when we remove one digit, we're going to rename this category as ICD-9 short. So that's what you're doing the entire time, but as you go down, you're removing an extra variable. And when we put this code and we run it, this is what shows up. So it did exactly what I told it to do. It started off with the ICD-9 code, and then after every row, it removed one variable. The original ICD-9 code gradually drops one digit until it just becomes I, and I is going to be the larger category that it belongs to. Remember, in the assignment, it's asking us to adjust the likelihood ratios based on the broader concept that they belong to. So as you can see, this is helping us to identify what the broader concepts are. Now we're going to use the different columns that you see here, A, B, C, D, to create our likelihood ratios. So to create the likelihood ratios, we need to have the sum of alive and sum of dead individuals, and we're going to add up the ICD-9 codes into different groups. The groups are ICD-9 short, ICD-9 short 2, and they just all go along by the amount of variables before and after the period in the ICD-9 code. In this section of the code, we're going to use an if statement, and we're going to tell the code if a plus b, if these variables are less than 100, then you should do these things. So the reason why we use the less than symbol here is because in the assignment it asks us to create the table with ICD-9 codes with less than 100 diagnoses. So here we're creating the new column labels for our um, new likelihood ratios. So we're creating new C, new D, new AB, new BD, and this is the final code. This is the final data right here. It's showing us the new likelihood ratios as well as the new columns associated with the diseases that have less than 100 instances. And this is what they ask us to do in the assignment. At the end here, I have a few citations from what I used. This is for the picture, and this was from the presentation we used in class. If you all have any other questions, please feel free to list them in the discussion board section of our course. Thank you so much.